eyes on Anchorage as Trump and Putin prepare to meet. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
The answers you need
from the people in the know.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
It's the big meeting. Both U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin are in Alaska. It's a high-stakes meeting that could end the war in Ukraine, a war that started with Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine back in February of 2022. Air Force One took off for Anchorage just after 6:30 Eastern Time this morning. Trump's meeting with Putin is supposed to start at around 3 o'clock this afternoon. There is supposed to be a joint news conference sometime today after the meeting, and then Air Force One is scheduled to depart Alaska just before 10 o'clock Eastern Time tonight. Ahead of the event, Trump took questions in the Oval Office on what he expects from the meeting. Trump mostly talked about money.
We have a big meeting, and it's going to be, I think, very important for Russia, and it's going to be very important for us, and important for us only that we're going to save a lot of lives. Look, we have, we're not paying any money, as you know, to Ukraine. We're supplying equipment. We're being paid 100% plus for that equipment by NATO. And I got NATO up from 2% to 5% of GDP. They now have billions of dollars. NATO is a very rich group of countries, and we make the best military equipment anywhere in the world by far. And they're buying our equipment, and they're paying 100% for the equipment, 100%. In fact, they owe us about $2 billion now. They're going to send a check. Another one was sent recently for $1 billion. So we're not spending any money anymore. Biden gave them $350 billion, got nothing for it. And if you look, and by the way, we also signed a rare earth deal where we get, years of rare earth to get our money back, the money we spent.
The war in Ukraine is the deadliest conflict in Europe since the Second World War. It's estimated Ukraine has lost between 60 and 100,000 soldiers since the start of the war. Tens of thousands of Ukrainian civilians have been killed, and more than 6 million Ukrainians are now refugees. On the Russian side, Russian troop losses are estimated to be at around 250,000. Trump says he wants to end all that.
But what I'm really doing this for is to save thousands of soldiers a week. You have Russian soldiers, you have Ukrainian soldiers, and then you'll have missiles dropped into various cities and towns in Ukraine. And they're losing last week they lost 7,251 people, mostly soldiers, Russian and Ukrainian soldiers. I'm doing it for that reason. We have a meeting with President Putin tomorrow. I think it's going to be a good meeting, but the more important meeting will be the second meeting that we're having. We're going to have a meeting with President Putin, President Zelensky, myself, and maybe we'll bring some of the European leaders along, maybe not. I don't know that it's going to be very important. We're going to see what happens. And I think President Putin will make peace. I think President Zelensky will make peace. We'll see if they can get along.
When Trump was asked what he thinks Putin wants from this meeting, Trump said if he wasn't the American president, Putin would try to take over all of Ukraine.
Well, he came to our country, and I heard CNN fake news talking about that was a big win for him. Normally, he would say the opposite, but they said, oh, it's a big win that he came here. Normally, he would say the opposite, he came here. I think that President Putin would like to see a deal. I think if I weren't president, he would take over all of Ukraine. It's a war that should have never happened. If I weren't president, in my opinion, he would much rather take over all of Ukraine. But I am president, and he's not going to mess around with me.
Speaking at the Kremlin, President Putin said he thinks the United States is making a sincere effort to end what he calls the crisis.
The current American administration, which, as everyone knows, is making, in my opinion, quite energetic and sincere efforts to stop the hostilities, stop the crisis, and reach agreements that are of interest to all parties involved in this conflict.
As for the Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky, he said this week there can be no ceasefire without Ukraine being at the negotiating table, and he thinks Putin is bluffing.
We also discussed the situation at the front line on the battlefield. I told the U.S. president and all our European colleagues that Putin is bluffing. He is trying to push forward along the whole front. And Putin is also bluffing, saying that he doesn't care about the sanctions and that they're not working. In reality, the sanctions are very effective and they're hurting the Russian military economy. It's right, Russia does have much more artillery and weapons, but Russia has 3 times as many losses. This is a fact. I told my colleagues and the United States president and my European friends that Putin doesn't want peace. He wants to occupy our country, and we all understand this, that Putin will not be able to cheat anybody, and we need American and European sanctions.
President Trump suggested this week Ukraine may have to surrender territory to Russia if there's going to be a deal.
There'll be some land swapping going on. I know that through Russia and through conversations with everybody, to the good, for the good of Ukraine. Good stuff, not bad stuff. Also, some bad stuff for both. So there's good and there's bad. But it's very complex because you have lines that are very uneven. And there'll be some swapping. There'll be some changes in land. And the word that they will use is, they make changes. We're going to change the lines, the battle lines. Russia's occupied a big portion of Ukraine. They've occupied some very prime territory. We're going to try and get some of that territory back for Ukraine. But they've taken some very prime territory. They've taken largely ocean, in real estate we call it oceanfront property. That's always the most valuable property.
The last meeting between a Russian president and a U.S. president was in 2021. That's when Putin met Biden in Geneva. The last time President Trump and President Putin met one-on-one was in Osaka, Japan in 2019. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
Well, he's our expert in communications, crisis communications, political communications, branding, and leadership. Barry McLoughlin is the president of TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants. Barry lectures at the Telfer School of Management at the University of Ottawa and at the MBA program at the Shannon School of Business at Cape Breton University. And you can read Barry on his Substack. Welcome back.
Great to be with you, Rob.
Well, let's talk about crisis communications at TIFF. The Toronto International Film Festival is certainly the most important film festival in this country, one of the most important in the world. It attracts all the big stars from Hollywood. It made international news this week, Barry, when it announced it wouldn't screen a documentary about the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel. Organizers said they pulled the documentary because it didn't meet certain requirements around security concerns, i.e. protests in the streets, and, quote, legal clearance of all footage. In other words, the footage captured by Hamas during its attack on Israel. So TIFF has now reversed that decision. The film will be shown, but my goodness, what do you think of how this was handled?
Well, I've been to TIFF several times. This is a self-inflicted wound. I think they tried to be too, to use the older phrase, politically correct and not to offend anyone. But in so doing, they certainly offended the Jewish community. They've offended people that, standing up for justice and what's going on. And to worry about offending, Hamas supporters is pretty outrageous. They crossed the line. And they were smart to finally pull the plug. The only real beneficiary of this, of course, is the documentary producers, including Barry Average, who will benefit out of incredible. You don't spend millions of dollars to get that kind of publicity. I'm sure they'll fill many theaters and various streaming platforms with viewers of this documentary. So it has that kind of a positive outcome, let's put it that way.
How should you handle that? Okay, you make an announcement. And immediately you get this backlash, and obviously it dawns on somebody, oh my gosh, like we have really messed up here and we're in a real mess now. They're writing about us in papers all over the world. They're calling from CNN. They're calling from Fox News. What are we going to do? What's your game plan? How do you game plan for something like that?
Well, the first announcement is everything. If you don't get that right, look out. So they didn't explain properly the exact point. Is it really Hamas that's the copyright owner? Is that who you're worried about? We don't really entirely know it, but you can certainly imply it from that statement. They left a lot of gaps and tried to do a usual kind of bromide reason why they're withholding it. It didn't satisfy. They should have been very precise about it and be ready immediately for questions, which I don't think they were ready for, frankly. So in the end, it all took too long. This should never have happened. Point number one. They've had a lot of very controversial films. I mean, I've attended several TIFF events and festivals, and sure, there are a number of things that are kind of on the borderline of offensive to quite a number of people, but that's all part of artistic expression, et cetera. And, right. Who is the one that's going to pull the plug on these things? I think TIFF made a big mistake. I am glad, of course, for their own sake that they learned a lesson and pulled the plug on it. But they can't afford two of these. You get a second one of these, and I think Cameron Bailey or somebody there at TIFF is going to have to walk the plank, because you can't have two huge errors like this in a row.
Yeah, it was apparently John Tory kind of brokered a deal on this to make them kind of see the light of day. The former mayor of Toronto, of course, John Tory, he's on the board of
right.
TIFF. So,
well, it's a former client of mine.
Good to have a mediator. Good to have a mediator like that, I guess, Barry.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What a mess, though. What a mess. What a mess. What a mess. Look, we'll stop a little bit early. That'll give us more time to talk about two topics in the next segment. You were very critical of Tim Houston last week when you were here, the Premier of Nova Scotia, just about his tone, how he delivered his announcement that he would be banning people from the woods. He did meet the media this week. I'd like to ask you what you think of his tone this week. And as well, your firm has an office in Washington, D.C., where Trump has taken control of the local police force. I'd like to get a thought from you on that as well. Barry McLoughlin with us from TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants. This is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now you know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
With Barry McLoughlin, the president of TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants. Terrible fire burning in the Annapolis Valley area of Nova Scotia right now, Barry. They've had dozens of homes evacuated, hundreds of people out of their homes in that part of Nova Scotia. People still banned from the woods. And Premier Houston had another news conference this week, and this is what he said about his critics.
I guess I find it remarkable, the interest in traveling in Nova Scotia woods by people who aren't in Nova Scotia and probably haven't been here very much in their life. So we're only concerned with keeping people safe. We'll do what's necessary to protect lives, and that's what we're doing in this case. Just I don't really have time for any type of conspiracy theories, or we haven't had any rain in Nova Scotia since June. So the thoughts and opinions of people who haven't been in Nova Scotia, who don't know what it's like in Nova Scotia right now, who probably have never been in the woods in Nova Scotia in their life, they're not a top. The thoughts and concerns of those people are not a top priority for me right now. My top priority is just keeping Nova Scotians safe.
Okay, you were very critical of his tone last week. What about this week?
Well, let me just put this in perspective. First of all right. He has been a very, very strong leader in this crisis in Nova Scotia. Very few premiers step forward daily to do what he is doing. And he is obviously leading a very coherent and strong emergency response to this. So I give him 100% admiration for all of that. And disagreeing with the amount of a fine, not the rule to stay out of the woods and we will impose a fine. I totally get that. That's not even an issue to me. The issue is I only made the issue $25,000. And the reason why I raised that was I felt that at some point it kind of rebounds back against you and becomes an issue of fairness. And sure enough, to my Substack post on that, I got a response from the Honorable Jeffrey J. Oliphant, former Oliphant Commission of Inquiry Commissioner, Associate Chief Justice, Court of King's Bench, Manitoba. He said, Barry, the purpose of imposing punishment is to discourage conduct thought to be harmful to society by the government enacting the legislation. In order to comply with the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the punishment to be imposed for such conduct must not be so excessive as to outrage standards of decency or to be grossly disproportionate to what would have been appropriate. I suggested a mandatory fine of $25,000 for taking a walk in a park offends the Charter on both counts. So there you have it. I'm no jurist and in no danger of becoming one. But that's quite the statement to make. And he said it in response to my Substack to me. So I'm just saying, look, I don't want to pile on him. I think there are people, we saw a guy on TV. He is just going to make trouble. He's just going to get in there and dare people to arrest him. I have no time for people like that. And the Premier is right that there are some people trying to make something of this that they shouldn't be making. You can disagree honestly with something without do a condemnation of everything. I think he's been very strong. Sure, he's got a tough tone. There's no question about that. And in fact, he looked in the camera and said, "We're going to prosecute you to the ends of, to the." He really kind of doubled down.
Collect every last dime, basically, is what he said.
I get, I've only been 40 years going back and forth to Nova Scotia, teaching in there and everything, and married into a Nova Scotia family. So I'm not claiming anything more than that, other than, I get, taking a shot at outsiders who think they know better than Nova Scotians is always golden. It's always golden.
They love that there.
I have coached my handful of premiers of Nova Scotia, so I think I know something about the way that these things play. So good for him. You know what? He's fed up. You can tell looking at him, a great guy, but you can tell, has he had a full night's sleep since this began? Probably not. So he is
we only have a minute. We only have a minute, Barry. We only have 1 minute. I have to ask you because your firm has an office in D.C. Is Washington, D.C. dangerous in a minute or less?
It's as dangerous as any major city in the United States. There are parts of Washington you shouldn't go near, especially at nighttime. During the day, no, not at all. They have improved, but, in the end, the real issue here is the fact that he's taking over the police department. The guy that January 6th, and we know all about that. And I think that in the end, it's very divided. People are extremely divided on this in Washington, D.C. right now.
Okay. Have a great weekend, Barry. Great stuff this week. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Barry McLoughlin from TLC Transformational Leadership Consultants. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Well, he has been minding Ottawa's business all week long. Tom Korski is the managing editor at Blacklock's Reporter. Welcome back, Tom.
Thank you, Rob.
Air Canada looks like it's going to be pretty much shut down by the end of business today. They're going to cancel about 500 flights. Thousands of members of the cabin crews have not shown up for work today. The cabin crews, the union has voted overwhelmingly to go on strike. The union says it is going to lock them out. The government keeps saying, well, the best deals are reached at the bargaining table, but we have seen in recent years the government intervene in many a strike / lockout to get things rolling again. If this government intervenes in this Air Canada labor disruption, how I don't know if you know this, how many times will it have done that in recent years?
In olden days, Rob, they used to have to recall Parliament, pass back to work legislation, very angry debates, everybody got upset. This cabinet hit on another devilishly clever scheme, the legality of which is a question pending in federal court, and there are many serious people who think it is illegal. And it's called a Section 107. What's that? Canada Labour Code has a section that says the Minister of Labour can refer any matter to the Canada Industrial Board, that's the big labour board that oversees federally regulated workers, like flight attendants, and the minister can do that in the name of, how is it phrased, securing industrial peace. 7 times this cabinet did that last year. 7 times in 1 year. They already did it with WestJet mechanics. I don't know what would stop them with trembling hand from doing it against Air Canada flight attendants. They've done it against railway employees, Canadian Union of Public Employees, 3 different locals, longshoremen, you name it.
Right. And Canada Post,
they do this
Tom?
at the drop of a hat.
Yeah. And Canada Post, right, as well? They've done it with Canada Post? Yeah.
Famously,
yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So we'll watch that. We'll see what happens. With that, I want to talk about kind of a late-breaking story here on a Friday that you have at blacklocks.ca today. What's up with Yves Giroux? He's the PBO, the Parliamentary Budget Officer. Has he been dismissed?
Well, his contract technically is up on September 2nd. And what's unusual is that there have been 2 parliamentary committees in the House of Commons and the Senate, including some Liberal appointees, who have issued recommendations. They want his term extended. It is pretty obvious that it won't be extended, and the Privy Council office, the top of the bureaucracy that handles these appointments, will not comment. There's an issue here that's keenly interesting, Rob. Giroux was sort of a late starter in his role, and then got into the job pretty seriously. He came from the Canada Revenue Agency, and I remember when he was appointed 7 years ago, there were parliamentarians said, "Are you sure?" They thought he was going to be kind of a stooge. And he didn't. He filled out the job, and he has been getting on Cabinet's nerves for 5.5 years, and I mean famously. What Trump says about his labor secretary
or whatever,
Cabinet has said about Yves Giroux constantly.
That's right.
And he has been a relentless friend of the taxpayer. They don't have a lot in this town, and there is no question that the Privy Council would like to see the last of him.
Yeah, I think the thorn in the big thorn in the side of the Liberals were his reports on the carbon tax, Tom.
Brutal, absolutely
which really
brutal.
Put to bed this idea that people were getting more money back than they were paying in, because he poked all kinds of holes in that.
He was also, Rob, a relentless critic of mismanagement. He testified in Senate committees. He said, you can't even run a passport office. The system is broken. You don't know what you're doing. Very frank talk that was frankly required at the moment. But, who doesn't like frank talk? Well, Cabinet.
Sure, yeah. Wouldn't be the end of the budget office, though. The end of him as the budget officer, I guess.
No, quite true. And Liberals don't get to appoint them on their own. It is requires input from other parties. He is an officer of Parliament. That means he works for all the people. And his 2 predecessors were also hellraisers. His immediate predecessor, Denny Frechette, name is forgotten, just a little man in a little gray suit, everyone thought. He's the guy who took Cabinet to court for concealing records. There's a long history of hell-raising in that office, and rightly so.
Yeah. Yeah, the opposition loves the auditor and the PBO until they're in government. That's just kind of the way. And then suddenly they're not BFFs anymore. On to other things. What is B'nai B'rith Canada accusing Canada of doing about Nazi collaborators who were led into post-war Canada?
Bizarrely, concealing these records, though the war ended 80 years ago, and B'nai B'rith in a video conference just last evening, pointing out that they disclosed they have been told by federal archivists that those Nazi files, this is wartime collaborators led into post-war Canada, and in some cases suspected Nazi war criminals recommended for prosecution in the day, though they are surely all dead now. B'nai B'rith executive says at the conference they've been told by archivists they can't name names because, in his words, it might cause them harm, end of quote. You don't want to hurt the feelings of any Nazi collaborators by disclosing their files 80 years after the fact. Unbelievable, Rob.
Okay, Tom Korski is with us, the managing editor at Blacklock's Reporter. I'm Rob Snow. More with Tom just ahead. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Back with Tom Korski. He's the managing editor at Blacklock's Reporter. Payday around here, Tom. That's
sweet.
That's my highlight of the last 2 weeks. Payday today. I still don't have any cash in my wallet, however. How popular is carrying cash these days? The Bank of Canada has some numbers on that.
They have. It's pretty popular. They say the typical Canadian, if you are typical, you would have $156 in your wallet, plus or minus. Keep another $200 at home, typically in 20s. And you'll go to an ATM about a couple of times a month. Why does the bank care? Well, they have the monopoly on printing banknotes. It's very important for them to know what the circulation is. But this is keenly interesting. As you and I have discussed in the past, Rob, retail banks, Scotia was the first to put it in writing, are clamping down on cash transactions by people who are not customers. They will not make change for a 20 if you do not have an account. And Cabinet has a bill pending. The number is C2. It's pending in the House of Commons second reading debate that says if you are a cash customer, we don't care if you are a small business owner with the same account at the same branch for 30 years, you cannot, by law, deposit more than $10,000 in cash if it's your end-of-week receipts anyhow, anywhere, no how. They want to ban that, and no one has really been able to explain why, but there's a lot of cash in the world.
Yeah. I'm surprised how popular cash still is in the country. Asked if they plan to go cashless at some point in the future, 79% said no. And quote, since the question was first introduced in 2019, our measure for the percentage of cashless Canadians has fluctuated between 10 and 19%. I guess the vast majority of Canadians still like having those bills in their wallet, Tom.
Good for emergency. And, there's a lot of, especially mom and pop shops that want to get away from those credit card fees, which are just a punishment, up to 3%, and they'll take cash only, and it's handy.
Boy, oh boy, this is an incredible story that you guys have, and you've been following it for quite some time at Blacklocks. Our government, in the interests of developing businesses in developing countries, made a pretty big investment in a Kenyan cell phone company, in Kenya. What did that end up costing the taxpayers?
Oh, they ran up the share purchases to over $43 million. That we know of. They won't discuss it anymore. This is a federal agency. It's called FinDev, headquartered in Montreal. You're right. This was foreign aid. Trudeau invented this. This was foreign aid under the guise of subsidizing corporations in developing countries. Don't ask me why. They thought this was a good idea. And they were panting to get the money out. We always say, Robert, when government doesn't want to spend any money, they'll stand on the sidewalk and argue over a nickel. But when they want to spend the money, it's like a wind tunnel of banknotes. It is like a game show. And Buddy in Kenya got in on the ground floor. They withheld these records under access to information for 6 years. October 2017, he says, I hear you guys are handing out money. He had his check for U.S. $10 million by February. What did the board of directors say at the Fed agency? We don't have time to do any due diligence. Good night and good luck.
We don't have any time to do due diligence.
No, that's for losers, right? Oh, by the way, speaking of losers, how much money has the Nairobi phone company selling housewares and phones door to door? How much have they made since we started buying shares? The net profit is zero. Net loss is $139 million.
Wow, isn't that something?
Oh, they can pick up.
Yeah. M Kappa Holdings Limited of Nairobi, a door-to-door sales company marketing cell phones and housewares. Would you like to buy a cell phone? No. How about some housewares? Okay. And you've got the ad here. Redeem your bonga points. And the people at FinDev Canada are like, you know what? This looks like a winner. Okay.
Rob, deficit times are good times. If you can get in on the ground floor, sure.
Yeah. What were the immigration levels to Canada as of the first quarter of this year? Those numbers are out now.
They're headed past the cap. They're headed for 400,000. And the feds will not release updated numbers, though they know them monthly. We know this because of a partial tabling with Senate National Finance Committee. This is on the level. The cabinet has involved a cone of silence on their immigration numbers. So you get only piecemeal figures. But the Prime Minister, no less, had said the system isn't working. I quote him accurately. He said they'll maintain a cap on immigration. So MPs have said, well, let's see it. And they won't release the numbers. But the numbers they've released so far do not indicate that they are anywhere near the promised cuts in quotas.
No, they do not. No. It's very much status quo by the looks of things, Tom, on the immigration front.
You know, Rob, the secret number on immigration is about 248,000. What's 248,000? That's how many housing starts we had last year. And right now, they're headed to 400,000 plus a floating population of 3 million temporary permit holders. That's why there's a housing crisis. No mystery.
Okay. Hey, we're going to wrap it up there for this week, Tom Korski. Thank you so much. Enjoy your weekend.
You, Rob.
Get caught up next week as you continue to mind Ottawa's business. Aren't you glad someone is? Tom Korski, the managing editor of Blacklock's Reporter. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
And if you're ever looking for a podcast of our show, Now You Know with Rob Snow, there's a great new mobile app. It will help you hear our show when you want to. Listen live, listen to the podcast. It's called the Seeker app. That's Seeker spelled Seekr, and it has all kinds of exclusive audio that you won't hear anywhere else. News, music, and sports. You can download Seeker for iOS or Android. That's Seeker spelled Seekr. And Now You Know with Rob Snow is on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. On the Jays watch. Toronto Blue Jays, another series win for the Blue Jays. Managed to take 2 out of 3 games from the Chicago Cubs. Very good ball club. Jays scored a 2-1 win yesterday. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. hit a go-ahead 2-run homer in the 7th inning. Max Scherzer notched the win. He pitched 7+ innings. The Blue Jays have won now 40 games at home. So they still have the best home record in the American League. The Jays also lead the majors in hits. They lead the majors in batting average and in on-base percentage. So they're playing very good ball. And the roster news is positive. There's word that George Springer, who's been great this season, is likely going to return at some point during the Jays series with the Texas Rangers. That starts tonight. Springer's been out with a concussion since he was hit in the helmet. Scary incident. That was on July 28th in a game against Baltimore. And Springer's batting .291. He has 18 home runs and 57 RBIs on the season. So as for the standings, the Jays remain atop the American League East. They are now 5 full games ahead of the Boston Red Sox. Boston was off yesterday. They're starting a series tonight against the Marlins. The Jays are 6.5 games against the Yankees. They were also off yesterday. The Yankees start a series tonight with the Cardinals. And as mentioned, up next for Toronto, the Texas Rangers. Texas is a 500 ball club. They've lost 7 of their last 10 games. Chris Bassett on the mound for the Jays. Texas counters with Jacob deGrom. Game time 7:07 Eastern time. You can catch all your Blue Jays action on Sportsnet, and you can listen to the Blue Jays on the radio at 95.7 News Radio in Halifax, 570 News Radio in Kitchener, and Sportsnet 960 The Fan in Calgary. In the CFL. Oh, my Ottawa Red Blacks, man. Oh, man. It's tough being a Red Blacks fan this season. They're 3-7 now. They fell to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers yesterday. It was a very exciting game, unless you're a Red Blacks fan. 30-27 final score. Winnipeg scored a field goal with no time remaining on the clock, and that spoiled a last-minute comeback bid by Ottawa. So tonight's action is the Toronto Argonauts in Edmonton to take on the Elks, who are not having a great season either. That's 9:00 Eastern. Tomorrow's early game is really the highlight of the CFL schedule this weekend. 3 p.m. Eastern, you have the Hamilton Tiger Cats at the Saskatchewan Roughriders. That's probably, right now, shaping up to be a preview of this year's Grey Cup championship game. Hamilton is first in the East. Saskatchewan is first in the West. And tomorrow's late game has Montreal in BC. Kickoff for that. 7 o'clock Eastern. And if you are a fan of the Canadian golfing legend, Brooke Henderson, in great shape right now on the LPGA Tour, 7 under par at the Portland Classic. So she's just 1 stroke behind the leaders and tied for second place. Brooke's last win on the LPGA Tour was in January 2023, the Diamond Resorts Tournament of Champions in Florida. Brooke Henderson, 13 wins on the LPGA Tour. She's won 2 majors. That's the most of any Canadian professional golfer, male or female. Go Brooke. We love Brooke Henderson in this part of the country for sure, from Smiths Falls, Ontario. Rob Snow. Talkback coming up. Friday free-for-all. We'll follow your lead on Talkback today, right after the latest breaking news. This is News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talk Back. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. It's a Friday free-for-all today. That's our favorite day of the week around here. We don't come up with the topics on Fridays. We leave that job up to you. So what's on your mind? What do you want to talk about? If you want to talk about something that's in the news, there's always lots of news. If you want to talk about something you think should be in the news, feel free to raise that here. Whatever it happens to be, serious or not so serious, we have a phone line for you. It's just waiting for you. It's saying, call me right now. Phone line's open, 1-833-668-2577. If you've never called before, just mention that. We'll make your call a priority, okay? 1-833-668-2577. It's actually been very busy in the news this week. Unusually busy for the dead of summer, I would say. The biggest story in the world today is Trump meeting Putin in Alaska. The one-on-one part of that meeting is supposed to start in about 2 hours from now. And then at some point today, we're going to hear from both of these leaders. They're going to have a news conference side by side. Should be quite the show. And who knows? Maybe they come to some kind of agreement on ending this war if they can sell whatever they come up with today to Ukraine. Now, over the course of the last week, we've heard from Donald Trump, and he's been saying there are going to have to be land swaps, meaning Ukraine could lose territory to Russia. What do you think of that? Well, we can start right there if you want. 1-833-668-2577. I mean, Ukraine didn't start this war. Russia started this war. Russia invaded its neighbor. And now, more than 2 years later, one view could be Putin is about to be rewarded with territory after launching an illegal invasion. Just how do you see it? I know, because I've taken the calls over the last couple of years, there is kind of a popular isolationist opinion out there that we don't have a dog in this fight, that this is not our war. We shouldn't even be supporting Ukraine with weapons or funding. And it's been a lot of money. It has been a lot of money. According to the Canadian government's own figures, about $22 billion in the last 2 years in military and financial aid to Ukraine. And some people have told me that money would be better spent here, helping Canadians. Still others will say, look at a map, and if Putin can get away with this, why would he stop there? Look, this one is the biggest story in the world. This is the biggest story in the world today. And if you have any thoughts on what might happen today, what you think should happen today, we're open to hearing it. 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577. By far, and I'm telling you, it's not even close, the most commented on topic so far on this show this summer here on Talkback has been the ban on going into the woods, first announced by the Houston government of Nova Scotia and then last weekend by the Holt government in the province of New Brunswick. There is a terrible fire happening right now in the Annapolis Valley of Nova Scotia, such a beautiful part of the country. They have had to evacuate dozens of homes, 150 people out of their homes because of another wildfire. In New Brunswick, the big problem is the Miramichi fire, which just seems to keep getting bigger. The situation near Moncton seems to have improved during the week. That is good news. But these premiers, Susan Holt in New Brunswick, Tim Houston in Nova Scotia, both met the media this week and both expressed zero regrets about taking these measures, despite some of the pushback and the debate that it has ignited across the country. Tim Houston says he has no time for people who have probably never even been to Nova Scotia, let alone have been in the woods in Nova Scotia. And he also likened some of the people to tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorists. So I know that we have talked about that topic in the last week. If you have anything you want to add to end the week, we'd love to hear from you. There is a development to tell you about today. It's from the Canadian Constitution Foundation, which has said in a statement that it will seek a judicial review. Let me see here. Quote, the government's August 5th proclamation, reading here from the statement, makes it illegal to walk, hike, camp, fish, or even picnic in any wooded area of the province without a permit, including both Crown land and for guests on private property fines, $25,000 plus. Council wrote to Premier Houston, but never received a response. On Thursday, local council retained by the CCF informed the government the CCF will file for judicial review and ask the court for a hearing as soon as possible. In addition, we have launched an online petition in support of keeping Nova Scotia's trails open, which has rapidly garnered more than 5,000 signatures. The CCF will argue Nova Scotia's Forest Act cannot be used to restrict access to all land, meaning the very broad definition of woods, and only allows for targeted restrictions in specific zones. We're also concerned the government has not properly considered or proportionately balanced the impact the ban has on charter rights and values, including creating an offense punishable by imprisonment, which is unconstitutionally vague and overbroad. Quote, sweeping restrictions like these undermine trust in public safety measures and raise serious questions about government overreach, said Christine Van Gyn, litigation director for the CCF. Fining people thousands of dollars for no-risk activities like hiking or bird watching is not a rational way to manage wildlife concerns. So that's the latest developments in the development in the woods drama, banning people from the woods because of the fire risk. The firm that has been retained in Halifax appears to be Nij Ahawan, McMillan, and Conlon Barristers and Solicitors. So there you go. It's the Friday Free for All Talk Pack. Love to hear from you. Phone lines are open right now. 1-833-668-2577. Let's get the conversation underway for today. And why don't you start us, okay? This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yes, it is. It is the Friday Free for All Talkback Hour, so we'll follow your lead today. Wide open on topics. James is, he says he's calling from a boat somewhere in the Atlantic. Okay, all right. Hello, James. Hello, James.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good, James. Thank you. You're on a boat. Where are you?
Well, we're sailing off the coast of Tancook Island right now, I believe.
Okay, all right.
We're going
Very
by
cool.
Round Island. Sorry, my mistake. It looks all the same to me out here.
Okay, all right, okay. All right. What's on your mind? What do you want to talk about?
Well, I'm just I'm just a little concerned about these fire bans.
Okay.
These fire bans that are out here right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a little bit of a slippery slope, I find. It's
all right.
If you are starting to limit people's freedoms all in the name of monitoring with their movements, where does it stop? Like, they're doing everything in the name of public safety, and they could really do a lot of damage. They could really do a lot of damage with regards to our freedoms and our rights to move around. I really don't think that that's the way in which we need to do this. And if you're stopping people, I can understand, motor vehicles and stuff like that going back into the woods. But if you're just going out there with your family and you're hiking and stuff like this, and you're trying to stop people, the very small percentage that may go in there and do smoking or whatever the case may be, I don't really think that should limit the use of everybody else. And now these fires that have started, are done by construction areas. They're in the city and stuff like this. And now we have a couple fires that are happening down here in I think it was West Dalhousie. Not really sure how those ones started, but I don't think that it goes right back to the trucker convoy. It goes to talking about different things. I've been around for like 54 years now, and I've seen a lot of changes in the way I grew up. And what they're doing is they're trying to protect everybody so much that they're limiting everybody's freedoms and their movements and stuff like this. And I really it can be a slippery slope going forward.
Okay, the premier has said, look, it's temporary, and these are extraordinary times, and they're trying to keep everyone safe and do their best and all they can do to prevent fires before they happen. That's what he would say.
And I totally support that. I totally support that. And I think that Tim Houston has been doing a very good job up until a point. I know I always used to support him, and I support him on a number of his initiatives. I like the fact that he's in the Conservative Party, and he's progressive conservative at that. But he does make a lot of sense, but when he starts talking about, some of the things I can't get on board with him with regards to the fire ban, the way they're presenting it, I totally think that we should not create fire. We shouldn't do any type of fire, but limiting hiking and different activities for families inside the woods, I think that's going a little extreme. Also, with regards to his policy on uranium, open up these uranium mines and all across Nova Scotia. When you look at places like Saskatchewan and whatnot with their uranium, it's 900 kilometers from the nearest civilized population. Whereas we're going to open up 3 uranium mines here in Nova Scotia, next to cottage country and in populated areas, which could encompass if there was a spill or a rain like we had in 2023 that could impact both New Brunswick, PEI, and Nova Scotia. So, because your contamination doesn't stop by.
Well, I think Mr. Houston, Premier Houston, I think in response to that would say we can't keep saying no all the time. We have, you have a province that has an abundance of untapped natural resource wealth, and especially given what's going on south of the border and the need for more economic security and economic development, it's time to look at
get that. Yeah,
projects like that. Whether that's uranium, whether that's more development of the offshore, whether that's fracking for gas, whatever the case might be.
Yeah, totally. But you shouldn't do it at the expense of public safety, because there is no way. If you do look at the research, and we've looked at the research with regards to this. Our family is part of the initiative that's trying to stop the uranium mines that are happening up here near cottage country and the Millet Brook.
All right. Okay.
Right in behind where our cottage is. And we have some uranium issues there. So if you go into there's no way to mine this ore or this mineral outside without disturbing the ground around it, and it can have huge economic.
I understand. Look, I've got to run because I have other calls to get to. I wouldn't want to live near a uranium mine either, sir. So I appreciate your point of view. We'll be right back with more of your calls. A lot more of your calls just ahead. We're just getting underway here on Talkback, the Friday free-for-all on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Ben is in Cross Hill, Ontario, in the Waterloo area. Hi, Ben. You're on the air, Ben. What's on your mind?
Hey, how are you doing?
Just great, Ben. Thanks. What's up?
Well, I just, you were commenting that we've invested or donated $22 billion to stop Russia and Ukraine.
To support Ukraine, yeah. In financial and military assistance, yeah.
My question is, how many water bombers would that buy?
I don't know. What's the going rate for a water bomber? Dozens, I suspect, sir. Dozens, right?
So do you think that would be a good investment for us?
Well, yeah, perhaps. I mean, it all depends on what your priority might be.
Well,
lots of people have lots of different priorities right now because wildfires are in the news. Everybody wants, better water bombers. How many affordable housing units could you build for $22 billion? How many nurses could you hire? How many doctors could you hire? Could you top up old age security? Could you improve retirement for veterans? I mean, just what, it all depends on what your priority is, I suppose, right?
Well, I think our priorities should be two things. We're not going to stop using carbon, right? So carbon capture would be a good investment. And I think when, 25% or whatever it is of your country's on fire, you should probably invest in putting that out. So that's all I got to say.
Okay, if that's all you have to say. Thank you, sir, for saying it. I appreciate the call today. Ben in Cross Hill I'm sorry, I've lost. Who's up next? Jim. Okay, all right, thank you. East Shore, Nova Scotia. Jim. Hello, Jim. Thanks for waiting. You're on the air. What's on your mind?
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Another gorgeous day in Nova Scotia here.
It's beautiful here, too.
It's one of way too many. Sitting here, I've got 30 acres, about 20 miles outside the city. And I'm just looking at all my pine trees. The tops of them are dead brown.
Yeah.
And just want to, so I would say I'm diametrically opposed to your first caller with respect to the wood scene. And I'm going to relay a little story, and it relates to, I'm closer to 70 than I am to 60.
Okay.
And I can recall when I was a kid going for a Sunday drive, my mother pointed out her house, which is on King Street in Dartmouth. Big veranda, looks right out over the harbor. And, so we were little kids, I don't know, maybe 8 years old. And she said, in the nighttime, we used to have to pull down our blackout curtains so the enemy submarines couldn't see any light.
Oh, sure.
So
yeah.
So we were quite interested in that. And myself and my brother said, well, what would happen if you didn't pull them down? She said, you'd be arrested and tried for treason. And she said, because it was for the safety of everyone.
Okay.
And I would say the likelihood of the Germans firing, and they did. My grandfather worked off York Redoubt, and the Germans did have submarines off there. But there's a much higher likelihood right now of property and persons being injured with fire than there was back then with, a lone shell coming in from a German submarine. We've never had these rights to not listen to the government. People think we do. We don't. We've never had these rights. We don't have them now. We never had them then. And from my perspective, and you can tell from my voice, right, we're afraid here. I talked to DNR people yesterday because there's some activity going around. I called them up, and she said they're on absolute tenterhooks here because things are just brown and dry. But my point is, what makes people think they have the right to defy something that's for the safety of everyone? And if James, your first caller said there's no place to walk, well, go to Martinique Beach. It's 10 miles long. Go to Turtle Beach. Go to Conrad Beach. Go to any of these beaches. And, again, my point is we've never had these rights to do this.
Okay.
We don't have them now.
Well, you do have rights, sir. You do have rights. And one of them is the right to life and liberty and security of your person. Liberty being a key one in this. I suspect it'll be part of that judicial review. Thank you, though. Appreciate the point of view. The news is next.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
I just want to throw one more topic just for the Friday free-for-all, because Air Canada's, let's face it, it's pretty much shut down now. You know, lots and lots of people traveling, lots and lots of people still vacationing. We have hundreds of flights canceled today because of this labor dispute between the company and the unionized cabin crews. This big impasse is over unpaid work. It's all about unpaid work. The cabin crew members are saying, we don't get paid until the flight takes off, and we stop getting paid when the plane arrives at the gate. Does that sound fair to you? Because that's what all of this is about. The union is saying these people do all kinds of work long before the plane takes off and long after the plane arrives at the gate. You know, if the plane is held at the gate before it takes off, they're not getting paid for that. If someone with mobility issues needs help getting off the plane, they're not getting paid for that. They're doing the work, but they're not getting paid. Is that fair? Do you think these workers have a valid point? Company, for its part, says these people are well paid. Company says it's offering them a 38% raise over the next 4 years. That's healthy. Raises in the first year between 12 and 16%. The company claims that the hourly wage could be $94 an hour for some of these workers in the first year. $94 an hour. It says by 2027, senior flight attendants will be making $87,000 a year on average, and that some of them will be making more than $90,000 a year. And it says these cabin crews at Air Canada are the best paid in Canada. They make up to, in quotation marks, up to $17 more an hour than the cabin crews at their main rival, which I guess would be WestJet. So there are a lot of people without jobs in Canada. I get that. A lot of people looking for jobs. These sound like pretty good jobs. Maybe they're lucky to have these jobs and they're getting raises. But what sticks out like a sore thumb is the unpaid work issue. Where do you stand on that? Air Canada, the Air Canada labor dispute with the cabin crew. Air Canada made a profit last year. Free and clear profit, $1.7 billion. It's doing pretty well. Richard is up next. He's in Calgary today. Hi, Richard. You're up next, Richard.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Really appreciate your show and appreciate you, and it's always great to hear. Thank you for doing this.
My pleasure.
Great. I just want to comment today on the Russia-Ukraine war, and just a couple comments. And one of them is that, first of all wars are awful things. These are not. I take nothing away from the awful civil wars and other ones we've had over the last number of years. But what makes this one unique is you have a millenarian dictatorship over a nuclear superpower that's invaded a democratically elected country, and for no other purpose than territorial gain. And even though Russia, of course, clearly in the Budapest Accord acknowledged this when Ukraine gave up their nuclear power. So it's just it's so difficult, it's so horrible. And I mean, I think one of the biggest issues here is that because this is the first time this has happened since the end of the Second World War, we're dealing with something that is, a fundamental in society. You can't stop it. And you have to stop it. It's got to be stopped. And I'm concerned when you look at Putin and Trump meeting in Ukraine. Putin wants to keep part of Ukraine's territory. Well, that if the U.S. was on the flip side, if U.S. was invaded and somebody said you got to give up Hawaii, Alaska, California, Oregon, and Washington State, and that for peace, I mean, the Americans would never go for that. I don't think why we should ask as people in free countries to actually ask the Ukrainians to give up part of their sovereignty, especially when we all guaranteed that security over the years. So I just think it's something we've got to stick with them, and it's very difficult. And I just again, all wars are awful. I'm not suggesting they're not, and they're horrible things. But
okay, so do you think? Let's say, for example, in a couple of hours, Trump and Putin come out and they say, "Well, we've agreed. There are going to be land swaps, but Russia is going to maintain some of this territory that is captured in eastern Ukraine. Would you view that as kind of a reward for an illegal invasion?
Yes, I would, Rob, and I also think it's really not up to the Ukrainians to say yay or nay, because it's their territory, and I think yes, it's a reward for somebody invading, their country.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, good to hear from you, Richard. Appreciate the point of view. 1-833-668-2577. Friday free for all topic. Many topics in the mix already, but if you want to raise one of your own, feel free to do that. Let's go to Andrew, who is up next, also in Calgary today. Hi, Andrew.
Happy Friday there, Rob.
Yes, sir. Yeah, good to hear from you. What's on your mind?
All right. I am going to talk about Ukraine as well.
Okay, yeah, by all means, yeah.
So I'm a little confused, and nobody else seems to have talked about this, but before this whole thing started, we had troops there training Ukrainian troops. We considered them allies, and we were training them. And I'm under the
we had troops in Latvia. We had troops in Latvia. That's our biggest contingent in that area was in Latvia.
That's what they're stationed out of. But my understanding was they were training Ukrainian troops.
Not sure about that.
See, the point is that while the Russians were amassing all their forces along the border before this whole thing started, we pulled our forces out of that area. Okay. Now, if they were in Latvia, which is not, in a conflict zone, then why would we need to pull them out? So my understanding was they were, in fact, in Ukraine at some point, and we had to pull them out. So my thought is, we are a little complicit. If we had kept them there and said, hey, we have troops there, you can't enter this country, none of this would have started. And any other allied troops that were training in there as well. But instead, we decided, oh, hey, something's going on, or maybe there's a bigger plan I don't know about. We pulled them out, and that just opened the door. So I feel like this whole thing could have just stopped before it started if countries like ours left our troops there saying, no, you can't do this. We're here right now.
Maybe it's a failing of NATO leadership not to bolster maybe that area, or to put up a more forceful front, I guess, against Russia in that case.
Because I'm also under the impression that we weren't the only ones there helping train. There were some other countries there. So yeah, I would agree with you. I think there is a NATO failing there. So as far as NATO and Canada, I think we're a bit complicit. We do have a horse in this.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your opinion. Great to hear it today. 1-833-668-2577. Friday, free for all. Talk back. I'm Rob Snow. Join the discussion, please, or start one of your own. This is News Radio.
Something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yes, it is. Let's go to Ivan up next. Ivan's in Calgary. Hi, Ivan. You're on Talk Back. Yeah, good to hear from you, Ivan. What's on your mind today?
So, just wanted to comment on this meeting in Anchorage. Just I don't expect anything important coming from that meeting. It will be always taco Trump. So this will be just lots of talks and no result as usual. And my personal comment: what a low life they are living right now. Can you imagine this happening under, say, Nixon administration, or It's just unimaginable, and it's.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
It is very unfortunate for the United States that they descended to this lowliness. That they are meeting with tyrant, with authoritarian dictator on their own territory.
Okay.
It's very bad.
Well, I mean, Donald Trump says he wants to bring an end to the war. He wants to bring an end to the war. He's sick of the killing. And if it takes land swaps to do that, then, so be it. And he said, they'll try to make sure everybody comes out okay in the end, even that Ukraine won't lose as much territory as maybe it would have. What do you think of that?
It's impossible.
Impossible.
The way he's trying to address this issue, it's not the right way, because what I think Putin is doing right now is just trying to extend his time in this war.
Okay.
And he's just trying to Trump to believe that he's capable of doing anything. So I'm actually from. I used to live in eastern Ukraine, and 12 years ago, this region was one of the most economically developed in the country. So they had Euro 2012 football championship in that city. They had new airport. They had a new stadium. Rihanna was singing on that stadium, and now I'm not sure if I'm able to say that on the radio, but now they are shitting in the bags because they don't have water. So
okay.
In building, you don't have a water to take a shower. They are happy to have a 5-liter bottle of water. You know, this is what Russia brings to the territories that they already quote unquote conquered. They brought this. Not the development, nothing. Russia cannot give anything to people. And my point in this, that Trump is probably misguided in this, and he still thinks that he can make an agreement. But in my view, any agreement with Russia doesn't worth even the paper it was signed on. So that's my.
All right. Thank you, Ivan. All the best to you, sir. Thank you for your call. Good to hear from you. Darren is up next. Hi, Darren. You're on Talkback, Darren. What's on your mind today?
I just love listening to the show. Thanks for getting me through. Something I'd like to talk about that I don't hear talked about much at all in this country is the credit and debt crisis of like personal people with their budgets and stuff. And like the amount of people I know that complain about not being able to afford, paying, feeding their kids, or they're paying them rent or whatever. And then I say, oh, do you do a written budget each month? And they're all, no. Like, well, how do you even know where your money is going? Like, I think and the predatory credit industry with all the credit cards and people financing everything from DoorDash to you have to buy a brand new car and finance it and all that stuff. It's like destroying the dream, right? All their bills are going to personal debt, and it just seems like it's so sad. Like myself, I'm 100% debt free with the 6-month emergency fund, and I wish I could give people the freedom it gives you to like put some money aside for the future,
Sure.
Just living on
very good for you. I mean, it takes a lot of discipline, but also there's a push on now. Just if you could, Curtis, just a second here. There's a push on now for more financial literacy to be taught in the schools. See, when I went to school, they never taught financial literacy, and money at home. To talk about money in some households in Canada was kind of a taboo topic. Like you just didn't talk about money.
Yeah, we got to get away from that taboo.
You got to get away from that, right? And like, in high school or whatever, you've got to start teaching people about, as you say, household budgets and credit ratings and the cost of interest, and maybe show them the power of compound interest, for example. I think it'd go a long way for young people. Would you agree? Oh, I think we've lost him. That's too bad. What a great point, though, that he raises, and yes, a big issue. Thank you, Darren, for your call, and all the best to you. Be right back with more of your calls on the Friday Free for All Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
Something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Full hour ahead of Talkback right after the latest breaking news at the top of the hour. But let's see how many calls we can fit in here before the news. John is up next. Hi, John. What's on your mind on Talkback today, John?
John in Calgary.
John in Calgary. That would be you. John, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I've tried to many times to get on, but I find 2 points. You mentioned, let's talk very quickly about the Air Canada situation. It's going to disrupt a lot of Canadians.
Yes.
And you mentioned a lot of very high salary implications or the money that these people are receiving. Yet I'm watching on the news, one of them saying a starting wage is $1,900 a month. And they have to live in Toronto, and they have to live in Calgary, and they have to live in these big cities. And so that's a complicated issue. Certainly they need to be paid for times when they're not working. But if the starting wage, maybe it doesn't have to go this 38% across the board. They need to be looking at what the junior people are making, because that's an abysmal wage. If that is what one of the attendants.
Well, one side is going to say one thing, and the other side is going to say the other, and the first casualty of war is always the truth, sir. So the truth probably lies somewhere in between. I mean, one of the Air Canada sent the media a statement yesterday saying, well, after this deal comes into effect, some hourly workers could make $94 an hour. And I was like, well, I'd like to meet the member of the cabin crew that's making $94 an hour.
No, exactly. And there's probably some truth in that. As somebody who's been working with the airline for 30 years or something like
30
that.
years. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
But what about the person who's been working there 1 year or 2 years? That needs to be, they need to split it up a little bit. As far as
the main sticking point, though, the main sticking point is the unpaid work issue. I mean, that's it.
Yeah,
I think so too.
That's not right. It is just
I agree.
Wrong. It's not right.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, sir. I think you're bang on.
I think Trump is. It's a PR move on his point. I doubt very much that he will get anywhere. But I don't hate the man for trying. If he is actually trying to do something positive, I say that's good. You can't use that. It's so divisive, that man's name. You can't say his name without the daggers coming out. It's ridiculous, but if he's trying, more power to him. I'll close on one question maybe you have the answer to, because I didn't research this. Did not the Russian invasion start with them saying we are reclaiming land that was previously under our control from years?
I suppose you could say that. I mean, there's all kinds of former Soviet republics that used to be in the Russia sphere, the Soviet sphere. Of course you could say that. This is land that used to be under our control, but it's not anymore. Not anymore.
It's time to talk back
on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
and have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Hey, welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback, the last Talkback hour for the rest of the week. So your last chance to have at us until the weekend. Tear a strip off of us or sing our praises. It's up to you. 1-833-668-2577. We're wide open on topics today because it's the Friday free-for-all. And we'd love to hear from you. Let's go to Robert is up next in Calgary. Hello, Robert.
Hey, Rob. How are you today?
I'm just great. Thank you, sir. Weather's beautiful here today. Can't complain.
Well, trade you. But anyways, on topics, I want to talk about Air Canada and other federal unions. Not a union guy, never have been to start with. But I fully support the Air Canada flight attendants asking to be paid for the hours they're working. It just doesn't make sense, and it's been like that. It's not just Air Canada; all the airlines have done it. but it's a practice that has to stop. Like,
yeah,
you know,
I agree with you.
I think for Air Canada, you know, if they went to their head office and went to all their staff going, you know, you don't get paid for the first 2 hours and the last 2 hours of your job ever again. You know, what kind of revolt would that happen? So why are flight attendants different?
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
And the other one is the Canada Post Union, and to me, they're the exact opposite of what the airline union's trying to do, because you know you can't have a company losing $1 billion a year, or whatever the magic number is there, and still expect raises and to keep working conditions exactly the same. It doesn't.
Well,
work.
I mean, Air Canada had certainly tough times and was on the receiving end of a lot of government money during the pandemic. But Air Canada is very profitable now. It's not losing money now. So, you know, for the last full year, it made a $1.7 billion net income profit.
Yeah,
free and clear.
That's why I agree with the Air Canada union, but not the Canada Post Union.
Well, yeah, I mean the Canada Post Union. Yeah, I mean, like the Canada Post is not even open today without $1 billion from the government. The Canada Post needed to be bailed out. I mean, where does that happen? You know, if only the Hudson Bay workers were able to get $1 billion from the government, maybe 8,000 of them would still have a job.
I would hope so with $1 billion.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah.
Right.
But yeah, it's just I really don't agree with what Air Canada. You know, but if all the airlines are still doing it, and I don't know if they are, you know, it's not right.
Yeah, but I mean, this is interesting because, you know, you're not a union guy. I'm not a big union guy. I've never been in a union. If people want to join unions, you know, and they think that's going to result in better working conditions for them, solidarity, brothers and sisters, and go for it. It's just never been, you know, my cup of tea. To each their own. But you have this claim here from the airline that some people are making $94 an hour. I'd like to know the member of the cabin crew who's making $94 an hour.
I'm guessing no one, but that's just me. You know, not many people make $94. You know, $94. You know, in the service industry, and that flight attendants are a service industry.
Yeah,
I worked in retail my whole life.
You're a pretty diehard capitalist by the sounds of it. You said you're not a big union person, but you're sympathetic to these workers, right? Because they're not getting paid for a full day's work.
Yeah, like where's Canada has labor laws, and I'm pretty sure it doesn't state anywhere in there that you can make them work for half their shift on the short flights that they don't get paid.
Yeah.
You know, why isn't the labor board stepping in? So,
well, I mean, the Conservatives had, the Conservatives had legislation about this, but it never went anywhere. They say they're going to try and reintroduce it, I guess, when the House is back in the middle of next month. We'll see what happens with it. Maybe this is all resolved by then. Who knows? Thank you, Robert.
You're welcome. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too. Thank you. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. If there's a topic you want to raise today on the Friday Free for All talk back. How about Wayne up next? Wayne's calling from Southern Alberta. Hello, Wayne.
Hey, Rob. How are you doing?
I'm just great, Wayne. Thank you. What's on your mind?
Yeah, just a couple notes. Like Ukraine back in '94 when they had the third largest nuclear arsenal. And they made an agreement with Russia and U.S. that for territorial sovereignty, economic sovereignty, and no military force going against them, they gave up those weapons. And now they're trying to make another agreement with Putin, which he's breaking the original one that he made. And so I think we have to support Ukraine as much as possible. If we kind of just flipped the script a little bit and said, although we would never have thought of this years ago, what if the U.S. decided that they wanted to come in and force us to become the 51st state? We'd expect our allies in that to be contributing, because we would never be able to, repel the U.S. Army just on our own. And then the final quick note on the Air Canada thing. I think they're misrepresenting that number, because that $94 an hour has to include what they call their loaded labor, which is the cost of benefits, vacation, sick time,
I see.
all that other
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh, well, maybe.
So,
yeah, maybe.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of companies have a loaded labor rate that they charge against a project, which could include truck time and everything like that. Like if someone has a service truck, they include $1 per hour for that service truck. So I think that $94 per hour is a little bit misleading in that way. So anyway, those were just the two comments I wanted to make about Ukraine.
What do you think about though
the
the main sticking point for the union being this unpaid work, that the members of the cabin crew don't get paid until the flight takes off and they stop getting paid when it arrives at the gate? Does that sound something that's fair to you?
Absolutely not. I mean, like one of your callers said, if you had to go in 2 hours early to prepare for the day and you had to stay 2 hours later, you'd expect to get paid for that. It's like that. Air Canada's made almost $6 billion over the last 3 years, and the flight attendants are really there for safety and so on and so forth. So you want to make sure you've got, someone that's feeling good about their job and what they're being paid. But that just, I was floored when I heard that. And I think it was John earlier said, there was a number that was floated around. It was $1,900 per month for a junior person, and that is what was reported here on news in Cal. I heard that on CTV. So anyway, those are just my comments. But absolutely,
that's not a lot of money. I mean, you're like what, 1,900, like 20, not even 25 grand a year. Not even 25 grand a year.
And the problem is, they have
how
to
do you live in
near the
Calgary on
airport,
less than 25 grand a year?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and they need to live near the airport to get to their job. So anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Got to run. Thank you. Lots of lines available there. If you want to jump in on any of these conversations or start one of your own, it's the Friday Free for All Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Oh, it's not just any talkback. It's Friday Free for All Talkback. One more topic for you to consider. Pierre Poilievre and his new line of attack. He's calling it the Carney tax. The Carney tax. Expect to hear a lot about this in the coming weeks and months ahead. The Carney tax is the electric vehicle sales mandate that is supposed to roll out on New Year's Day, less than 6 months from now. 20% of all the new vehicles sold in Canada will have to be electric vehicles, and then gradually it will come into effect over the years. And then by the year 2030, it's 100% of all vehicles in Canada will have to be EVs. Poilievre took a detour from his election campaign, the by-election that he's running in Battle River Crowfoot in Alberta. He went to Saskatchewan, to a place called Corman Park, Saskatchewan, yesterday to say his party is going to do everything it can to stop this EV sales mandate from coming into effect. Let's listen to clip one of Poilievre, a little bit of what he said yesterday.
That is why I am announcing today the Conservatives are launching a massive nationwide campaign to stop Mark Carney's ban on gas-powered vehicles. This campaign will include motions in Parliament, pressure campaigns in local Liberal MP ridings, press conferences and events at car dealerships across Canada, petitions, and other activities that will mobilize Canadians to maintain their right to decide what car they can afford and what car works for them. It's time to put Canadians back in the driver's seat.
And Poilievre would go on to say that the government forcing people to buy electric vehicles would hurt the rural way of life. Roll tape.
Electric vehicle mandate is that the Liberals are imposing on Canadians is a complete an utter disaster. It would cripple Saskatchewan and most of the prairie provinces. Rural communities in much of Canada would simply cease to exist over the next 10 years without the ability to use gas and diesel-powered vehicles. And it is not an exaggeration to say that Liberals are effectively banning rural life when they ban gas and diesel-powered trucks. That is why today we have announced that Conservatives are launching a nationwide campaign, including in the House of Commons, to force the Liberals to back down on the Carney tax and the gas vehicle ban, to allow people to have the freedom to choose the vehicle that is most affordable and most effective for their lives, and to put Canadians back in the driver's seat.
What do you think of that from Polyev? Yeah, the sales mandate, it would be fully in effect by the year 2035. I think I said 2030. It's 2035, 100%. So, 10 years from now. Well, I think that's 9 model years in the auto industry. But he says moving ahead with this EV sales mandate would mean the end of a way of life in rural Canada, especially in Western Canada. Any truth to that? What do you think? Any truth to that? I'm not against electric vehicles, not at all. I'm against being mandated to buy one. And I'm against the government forcing companies to sell them. And eventually to sell only those kinds of vehicles. I'm also, ever since they were introduced, I've always been against the government offering rebates to, let's face it, relatively affluent Canadians who can afford these vehicles so they can feel good about having a green car in the driveway. I've always been against that. My belief is if people want to buy gas-powered vehicles, let the market dictate that. If there's a demand for gas-powered vehicles, the market will decide that. If people want EVs and we really are in a great green transition to electric vehicles, then the market will figure that out too. I know we've talked about this in the past, but by all means, if you want to reinvest in that issue, give us a call, 1-833-668-2577. Be right back with more of your calls. This is the Friday Free-for-All. Talk back. I'm Rob Snow. It's Now You Know, and this is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Emerson up next on the Friday Free-for-All Talk Back. It's kind of a weekly check-in from Emerson. How are you today, Emerson? Go ahead. Emerson, are you with me, Emerson? No, Emerson. Okay, that's a shame. How about who do we have here? Scott? We have Scott on the line.
Hello.
Hello. Who do I have on the line here? Is that Scott?
Emerson.
Emerson.
Hello.
Okay, Emerson. Thank you, Emerson. Go ahead.
Okay, Rob, I just wanted to clear up a couple of points. People calling in saying Air Canada came up with this number, $94 an hour. It's not true. It actually is true. My brother's an in-flight service manager. He's in charge of the crew from start to finish on the flight. He actually makes that. In addition to that, he also gets a per diem while they're away from base. In addition, I want to clear up something. With this $1,952 a month for flight attendants, that's for guaranteed flying hours. So even if they don't take a flight, Rob, I mean, they don't have to work one single hour. They're guaranteed $1,952 a month in their bank. Anything over additional 80 hours per month, that's over and above, and they make $26.92 an hour. So once their 80 hours has been accumulated and they go over that, they start earning $26.92 an hour. So you got to remember one thing: they're going to feed you a bunch of malarkey because they want to excite everybody.
Yeah, well, both sides will. This is not my first, not the first strike or lockout I've covered. But look, the claim from the union is a lot of the work that is being done by the members of the cabin crew, they don't get paid for it. They don't get paid till the flight takes off. They stop getting paid when they arrive at the gate, and that has got to end. In fact, the Conservatives are supporting these workers. They even had legislation in the House that died when they called the election.
Well, let me say something to you, okay? My brother told me this with all this stuff that went on. When you go for your interview, they tell you you're paid from block out to block in. That means the moment the doors close to the moment the door opens at the gate. When you agree to those terms, why are you complaining? You knew what you're getting yourself into. Like, I don't have a problem with people complaining, I want more money. Everybody deserves more, believe me. But why are you complaining? You agreed to those terms. You sign a contract. My brother went from being a flight attendant. He was elevated to an in-flight service manager. He signed a contract that his responsibilities were signed. Yeah, I agree with you. Everybody should make more. But don't complain and say, oh, look at me, I'm doing all this for nothing. Well, you agreed to do it for nothing before you even took the job.
Okay. All right, Emerson. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you to your brother. Sounds like he'd be a good source for me. Scott, I think, is up next in Calgary as well. Scott.
Hello? No.
No? Okay. Who's on the line there? I hear somebody on the line. Hello. Who do we have here? Scott? Bruce?
Hello? No.
Carrie? Jim? Like, who is on the line here?
Linda?
Linda. Okay, Linda. Sure. Bingo. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just saying with Trump. Trump is pushing for our Nobel Peace Prize. So he's got his own hidden agenda for this business with Ukraine. And as far as the attendants, flight attendants and stuff, why don't they go on a base salary then? Your starting wage is this is your base salary, and it encompasses all these things you do. And then as you get years more, your base salary goes up, but it's still encompassed.
That would be an option.
Yeah. So those are my two things. And as far as the EV car business, yes, I would not. I'll quit driving by time because I know they're not reliable out here in the winter when you're driving 100 kilometers, to get anywhere. So, yeah, that's my point on those.
All right, Linda. I'm glad I could connect with somebody on the Friday Free for All Talkback. We'll try and figure out what's going on. It's on our end, everybody, not on yours. We'll get it sorted out. Don't worry. The latest breaking news is coming up next. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
All right, kick the gremlins out of the machine and we're back to normal and we're in the home stretch here of Talk Back on News Radio. I'm Rob Snow. Let's get right to our calls. Friday Free for All. Bruce is up next. Hello,
hey, well,
Bruce.
Good afternoon. Hopefully we can hit a home run now that the gremlins are in the system.
Good to hear from you, Bruce. What's on your mind today?
Hey, just for context, I spent 2 decades working and consulting in the airline sector. And I like to joke with people that if you think they treat the passengers bad, you should see how they treat their employees and suppliers. It's not great, and as you see, they have a lot of retention problems. And as other callers pointed out, taxpayers have put a lot of money into the corporation. The way that they're paid with block hours, at one point that may have worked as a business model, but that was before the air traffic control system was kind of at max capacity, before weather delays, mechanical delays. So imagine you're a flight attendant and you show up, and through no fault of your own, the flight's delayed 4 or 5 hours. You're not getting paid.
Right. You're not getting paid.
And the way they've done it, well, it's kind of like the teachers. It's like the argument of teachers not getting paid in the summer. Teachers do get paid in the summer. They only have to work 10 months. But in this industry, the pay is very low. The benefits are very low. They don't have pensions anymore. And so it's true they do have a higher wage right now per hour, but the hours they work, it's very haphazard. You're always away from home. The per diems, which is to pay for your meals when you're away, isn't significant. It's not great. It really is time for Air Canada, and I'm very pro-business. It really is time for Air Canada to show some leadership and pay these people better. You may lower their hourly wage, but pay them for more work because they do show up early and they have to show up. Otherwise, they're considered, AWOL. So I'm definitely in support of them paying money. And out of that $1.6 billion they made last year, if you were to pay them each, $10,000, it's only $100 million. That's not even 10% of the profit they made. So I think most of the public and business owners are in support of a very tough job. It's way tougher than it used to be, that these people needed to be paid with respect.
Okay.
And if they don't, they're just never going to be able to.
If I may, Bruce, tap into your experience in this industry just while I have you on the line. I'm assuming that this, what you call block pay, is not just an Air Canada thing, that this is a standard industry practice. Is this a WestJet Porter thing in Canada as well?
It's totally industry standard all across the world, but it's different
across the world. Okay.
So, when a pilot's making $350 an hour, it's very different than flight attendants, right? They're making $200,000-$300,000 a year, not $25,000 a year. So the way it works is that there's a sensor on the brakes, and when the brakes are released, that's when the pay starts for both the crew on board and for the pilots. But again, that's kind of the way it's always been done, and other airlines don't have other ways to compensate their employees. So, for example, Delta Airlines, during pandemic, they paid, I think, $200 or $300 million bonus to all of their employees for doing a great job. Air Canada isn't doing that. When WestJet everyone was an owner, they were also paying out big bonuses to pilots and flight attendants and baggage handlers as a way of showing their contribution. Air Canada doesn't do that. So Air Canada is trying to have the best of both worlds and only paying them to show up and not taking into account any weather delays, maintenance delays, air traffic delays. So it's just not, it is time to change the industry because the industry is having a hard time attracting maintenance workers,
attracting
handlers,
all right,
pilots. So if they really want to sustain their business, even if you went down to a single pilot in the cockpit, which will never happen, the flight attendants are there for safety. You absolutely require them. They're essential. And, they're not really, they're treated very poorly. Like McDonald's workers are paid better, right? It
all
really
right,
is
Bruce, I'm going to have to wrap up our conversation there because we have other calls to get to, but I really appreciate your insight there. That's a lot of great information to know. Thank you. Carrie, thanks for waiting. Carrie, I believe we have you on the line. Carrie, hi there.
Oh, hi. Yes, thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah, there's a lot of things to worry about here. Oh, my goodness. But
it's busy.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention a few things about the Air Canada flight attendants on strike here, or going on strike. Thinking about this, I think we have to also maybe do a little bit of research on our own and discuss it. But each collective agreement, and that goes for their local 4095 as well, you can look up the last collective agreement and get some information about what they were bargaining for last time and look at their pay versus benefits versus a Me Too clause for the pilots. Now, I believe I had heard somebody mention a Me Too clause is the flight attendants got many of the benefits that the pilots did, or at least the captain did as well, in first class travel, and deadheading and different per diems and things like that. And most collective agreements are well above the employment standards, which we can look up in Canada here very easily as well. Anybody can. And, do our research before we start generating anxiety and push between the unions and the companies and things. And I think, we got a teachers union strike coming up here as well in Alberta. And teachers get paid a fair amount of money, but also they do, sometimes 10 to 15 hours of work each day, not just what the kids are doing in school.
Lots of prep. Yeah, lots of prep before and after, for sure. Yeah.
And, so I think, keeping our, sometimes the pressure down and our minds open about what actually has been going on here is difficult when we're listening to all sides. So I agree with you very much when we have to keep some of the BS down and really see what's going on. That's all I had to say.
There'll be plenty of that. There will be plenty of that, I suspect. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Carrie, for hanging in there. Really appreciate it. Be right back. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talk Back. We have about 3 lines available there if you want to jump in on this one. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Okay, lines available there if you want to jump in on the Talk Back. Boy, we've been all over the place today. Air Canada's been a hot topic. I mean, they're pretty much winding down operations today. Hundreds of flights canceled. Thousands of cabin crew members just like not showing up for work. So I think the writing is on the wall for this. I mean, is it a strike? Is it a lockout? It's a little bit from column A. It's a little bit from column B. It'll be interesting to see what develops over the next few days. It'll be interesting to watch even if the government lets it drag on. We have seen, as we reported with Tom Korski, we have seen the government intervene before in labor disputes. I think he's in 9 times over the last several years when workers have tried to go on strike or have been locked out by their employer because they were about to go on strike, whether it was Canada Post, the rail workers, some public sector workers, port workers. The government, especially the Liberal government, likes to portray itself as being very labor friendly, when in fact what they've been is they've been strike busting. That's this cabinet's record over the last number of years. I'm sure Canada Post would the workers at Canada Post probably rather be on strike than instead of working under a collective agreement that expired in 2024, I think it was, in the January of 2024. In this case, these two sides, they've been bargaining for a year, and yet still it has reached this point. Largely, the union says, because the airline has done nothing to address its concerns, as I say, about unpaid work. So will the government intervene? The government might say, well, travelers have other options. There are other airlines in Canada. You can try and get a seat on WestJet. Porter is there. Not nearly the number of routes that Air Canada would have domestically. And of course, what about international flights? I mean, Air Canada is kind of what do they call it? The flagship carrier or whatever. That travels to so many international destinations that, quite frankly, those other two airlines do. Will there come a point when the government would be forced to intervene? Parliament isn't even sitting right now. Would they go through this, what Tom Korski called this clever route, and do a Section 107 so they wouldn't have to recall Parliament and pass back to work legislation? I have to see how all of this unfolds over the next few days and see what the government does. The government right now is largely staying out of it, encouraging both sides to get back to the negotiating table, saying, the best agreements are reached at the negotiating table. Air Canada, I mean, it's still, it's the middle of August, still a lot of people on vacation, maybe the tail end of their vacation with school coming back in just a couple of weeks. But I have members of my own family. My wife is in Prince Edward Island right now, for crying out loud. She's taking a Porter Airlines flight back to Ottawa next week. They have a direct flight from Prince Edward Island to Ottawa, so she's not really impacted by this. My stepmother is in London, Ontario. She flew from Cape Breton to London, Ontario on Air Canada. I don't know how she's going to get back. to Sydney, Nova Scotia. So, I mean, just in my own personal circle, I know people who could be impacted by this. Another big news story was in Ontario this week. The Ford government ordering all of its government workers back to the office 4 days a week, 4 days a week. And you know what? There's sure to be howls of outrage from the public sector unions about that they have to be in the office 4 days a week. But Ford and his Minister Mulroney, they're saying, look, life is back to normal now. The pandemic is over, and the pandemic work arrangements should be over as well. And it's, normal for employees all across Ontario to be in the office at least 4 days a week. So under the pandemic work arrangements, they had been in the office 3 days a week. Employees had to be in the office 3 days a week, and then they could work the other two remotely or at home. So now it's going to be 4 days a week. I would predict a lot of people will be working from home on Friday. What do you think? That's kind of the way it works in Ottawa. We have so many people who work for the federal government in Ottawa. And most of them are only going to the office 3 days a week. And you can see it in the traffic patterns. I mean, it's unbelievable in the nation's capital. Like Monday, no traffic. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, crazy traffic. Friday, the tumbleweeds are blowing by downtown Ottawa. There's so few people working in downtown Ottawa. Be right back. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
This podcast is supported by The Real Real. Meet Christine. She loves shopping. And this is the sound of fashion overload. Too many fabulous things, not enough space. So Christine started selling with The Real Real.
I've always loved collecting designer pieces. Gucci bags, Prada heels. But my style keeps evolving. Selling with The Real Real? Game changer. I earn more, and they do everything.
Seriously, just drop off your items or schedule a pickup. We handle the photos, descriptions, pricing, even shipping. You just sit back and watch your items sell fast to our 38 million members.
And I get peace of mind knowing I earn more selling with The Real Real than anywhere else.
Exactly. That's the sound of your closet working for you. The Real Real. Earn more, save time, sell fast. And right now, you can get an extra $100 site credit when you sell for the first time. Go to therealreal.com to get your extra $100. Therealreal.com. That's therealreal.com.